Well,
So, speaking of Thanksgiving,
yeah, should we get started
yeah,
with our
let's
episode?
jump in.
So, is this technically my episode?
I think so.
Okay, so I'll start it.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the Balance for Life podcast. It's been a little bit of a hiatus. Adam was moving,
Yeah.
so I'm going to blame it on him.
I'll take full blame for it. It was moving.
I
Was
will-
not fun.
I woke up early every Saturday morning and just cried because we weren't filming.
I have that effect on people.
Yeah, so welcome back. Our goal here is to help you uncover the secrets of happiness and success and just find positivity and balance in your life.
Yeah, if you like what you hear, feel free to leave us a good review, drop that 5 stars, give us a like, share, comment, all the things on social media. You can find us at Balance for Life on almost everything. Facebook,
At Balance for Life podcast.
Balance
with the
for
number
Life.
4.
Balance for Life podcast, yes. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and then on Twitter we are at Adam and Perry.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, we haven't been that active on the social medias.
Yeah.
The
By
last
we,
little
you
bit.
mean you, because I never have. You were the one doing it.
Well, you were in the TikTok one.
That's true. I did some
I
stuff on TikTok for a little bit.
I haven't really been able to get the hang of TikTok yet.
Yeah.
I started with the band a while back, but
It's hard.
I don't.
I mean,
There's just too many.
there's a lot of opportunity, but I'm like, I don't know what to do.
There's just so many
Yeah.
different platforms out now. It's hard to keep track of them all. Anyway.
Well, so you can find us everywhere.
Yeah. Also on
Yeah.
YouTube, you can
Yeah.
you can watch the videos.
Yeah.
Thank you to the 4 people that are watching.
Yeah. Well, we've had a decent amount of views on a couple of them.
A
But
couple of them. Yeah.
So, speaking of looking on the bright side, this is our Thanksgiving episode because Thanksgiving is right around the corner,
Yeah.
and
Well,
this will air the week of Thanksgiving.
this will air the Monday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're actually skipping an episode, or we're postponing an episode that we've already recorded.
Yeah.
So that we can have this one out the week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So if you heard us say what the next episode was going to be, and then this is the next episode,
Yeah.
that's why. But we're going to talk about gratitude and the importance that having an attitude of gratitude has in just overall positivity and well-being in your life.
Which I think is kind of it's kind of an interesting concept when you think about it. I think there are often times when we do start to feel a little bit down, a little bit sad, and we start to get a little bit overwhelmed with what life's throwing at us. It's really difficult to find something to be grateful for in those times.
Mm-hmm.
But like we were talking about before we started this, and I think we're going to get into this as part of the topic, it's those times when you're feeling down, that's when it's the most important to try and find something positive,
Yeah.
something to be grateful for.
For sure. I've been talking about this with my daughter quite a bit lately because she just has a little bit of a negative attitude more often than I think my other children. And so, we've been talking about why it's important to be thankful and how you can make yourself be thankful when you don't want to be. So
Mhm.
this is something that's been on my mind a lot lately. And I think there are a lot of benefits to being thankful and just even making yourself be thankful. We'll talk about some ways to do that, some tools. But I think some of the benefits are obviously overall happiness, right? If you find things to be thankful for, you're just going to be happier.
Mhm.
But I don't know if there's any science behind this, but I think dwelling on the negative can negatively impact your immune system. Whereas making yourself be thankful can have a positive impact on your immune system. I firmly believe that our physical and our mental and emotional are so connected that, if you can force yourself to be thankful and get into the habit of just being a thankful person, that it will have a positive impact on you physically as well.
Interesting. And I don't know that it's necessarily science.
It's Dr.
But-
Perry
yeah.
talking.
I don't know that it's necessarily science. Well, actually, there is some science behind it. There are books out there. Joe Dispenza is a great one. He's a doctor, and he wrote several.
He's a real
books.
doctor, not a
He's
fake
he's a
doctor.
real doctor. Well, he's a chiropractor, I believe. But
Okay.
still, he
Oh,
has.
yeah.
He's a real doctor, and he's written. He's written. I can speak good English. He has written several books, and a lot of them are focusing on shifting the way we think, changing the responses in our brain, and really it's a matter of, and he gets into the quantum physics that's way like crazy complicated, but he talks about the synapses and how we only use a certain percentage of those, and as we use them more, it just becomes a habit, so our brain automatically goes through those. If we change that, then it just takes time, but it gives credence to the phrase changing your mind, right? It is a legitimate thing to change your mind, and it really does have a physical effect on you. You know, if you change the way your neurons are firing in your brain, it's going to change the way that your body responds to that. So there really is some science behind it. There is also some of the more, I think they term it woo-woo type like attitude around it, but just about the more we think positive, the more positivity comes to us.
Yeah.
And it's all about the energies and the way we focus on things. So I think there really is some real power in that.
Yeah.
And some truth to that.
That law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
That if you focus on being positive things will happen to you more. And I think part of it's that you'll see the positive more, right? But I think also, there is something to the law of attraction that what you're giving out is what you're going to receive. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, if you make yourself be positive, bad things are still going to happen to you, right?
Naturally.
But you'll just get better at seeing the good. And now you might be thinking, well, what about if this happens, or what about if this happens? How can you be positive? And I think we've talked about exactly this on a previous episode about when our daughter passed away.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were speaking with a therapist, and one of the things that she really encouraged us to do was to list things that we were thankful for. And that was hard to do, but it was not impossible, right? And it actually helped us get through it. So I would venture to say that no matter what situation you're in, there's something you can find that you can be thankful for. Because I've been in the situation where I felt like there wasn't anything to be thankful for, and I made myself think of things to be thankful for, and it helped me get through it. So there's that plug. Like, no matter what's going on in your life, I guarantee it, there's something you can be thankful for.
Absolutely. And I'll say this to a little bit more personal, well, not more personal, because that's very personal, but related to me and kind of what I've been going through lately. I felt kind of down lately, I'll be honest, and I think that's part of the reason why we haven't gotten together and done this podcast for a little bit. Feeling a little bit overwhelmed, overwhelmed, a little bit stressed, just like work and
moving
like, and things just don't seem to be working out the way that I've wanted them to, and like it seems like a lot of things that we've tried to make happen are now happening in a different way, and so it's been hard for me the last probably month or so to find things positive. And so I've been a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit down, a little sad, a little stressed, quite a few negative feelings. And when you mentioned gratitude as the topic for this podcast today, so I was kind of debating actually whether I was even in the right state of mind to do this week.
Yeah.
And so when you mentioned gratitude, I started thinking about gratitude as a topic and thinking about what we could talk about with gratitude. And all of the things that came to my mind that we could think about were things that I realized could actually help me get out of this rut or funk or whatever you want to call it, right? But talking about all these gratitude things, and as I was thinking about things that we could mention, songs and challenges and things like that, and I just thought, maybe I need to actually try and apply this right now. And so as I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, my mood has actually improved. Just thinking more about gratitude, thinking more about the positive things in my life. And it's actually helped to improve my state of mind and where I've been the last month or so. So I definitely think that when it's difficult, when you're struggling, that's the time when it's really critical to find and list those things, because there always is something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
We all have at least one thing that we can be grateful for. And
Definitely.
looking for that brings you back into that frame of it's not all bad.
Right.
Things aren't as bad as they seem.
For sure. For sure.
So,
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that too. I think that's like everybody goes through what you've been going through, right? Yeah. Everybody does. And no matter how much money you have, no matter how many friends you have, like, I think it's human nature to feel down about stuff sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And even when things are good, sometimes we just, like looking back on times that I've felt down and then, comparing it to times where I really had a reason to feel down. It's like sometimes you really do and sometimes you don't. And
yeah.
Either way, you can, having a positive attitude and being thankful for things can help get you through it. So let's talk about some ways that we can kind of make ourselves be thankful. Mm-hmm. And I think it all comes down to intentionality. Right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things you mentioned in preparation for this was one of our hymns in our church mm-hmm. called Count Your Blessings. And that's what the whole hymn is about is, when things are bad, when this is happening, take a second and count your blessings, name them one by one, mm-hmm. and you'll be surprised at everything that you have that's good.
Yeah,
right?
That's one of the things that's been going through my mind a lot this morning is the words of that hymn. And so if any of you have access to a hymn book, I don't even think it's just in our church. I think it's
I don't know if that is or not.
I think it's several Christian churches, but it's talking a lot about things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
When things are bad, when things are low, when your mood is low, when things are troubling you. Think about where your positive is. Stop and take a breath and focus on what you have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And it helps out a lot.
So I guess tip number 1 is count your blessings, right? Yeah. Intentionally just start thinking about listing things that you have to be thankful for.
Absolutely. There's, like we said, there's always at least one thing that you can think of. And typically, and I think this is kind of going back into the science of it and the law of attraction, is as you sit down and start to list out things that you're grateful for, you're going to think of more.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think most of the time as I've actually done this, because one of the things that we're going to talk about as part of this challenge, but is actually making that list, and as you start to think about those things that are positive in your life and think about those things that you're grateful for, more things come easier. And you can think more easily of other good things. Mm-hmm. So the more good you think about, the more good comes to you.
Yeah, definitely. So just speak out loud things that you're thankful for, mm-hmm. or think them, right?
Write it down.
So
Gratitude
that's the
journals.
Next thing is journaling.
Gratitude journals are amazing.
And we've done an episode on journaling
Yep.
and talked about, the benefits of journaling and how to get into the habit and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say it's not bad to write down negative things in your journal, right?
Absolutely.
But my goal is always to focus more on the positive. So, like in high school, I journaled and it was all like really depressing. She won't answer my phone calls. Why can't she just tell me she doesn't like me instead of ignoring me? Yeah. So now when I journal, my goal is to just write at least one thing that happened that was a good thing. Now, if there's something that I'm going through that I want to write more about, I'll do that. But overall, I focus more on the positive as I journal. And I think that's important to do. Like, it's okay to focus some on the negative, but try to have the majority of your focus be on the positive as you're journaling. Same thing with like music. I think sometimes when I'm down, listening to sad or angry music or whatever can kind of help me feel validated and kind of help me get through it, right? But a lot of there's just some like uplifting, like happy songs that just are always good to listen to no matter what mood you're into. So
yeah, I think it's interesting. So on both of those notes, talking about journaling. So I journaling is something that I struggle with. I'll be completely honest. I'm not good at keeping a journal.
I did it for a little while, and then I haven't for like a month now.
I go back and forth, and there's
I have it on my
times-
nightstand.
Yeah, there's times when I'll be really good, and like we went to Disneyland. I went camping over the summer, and I'd always take it with me.
Yeah.
And like when we went to Disneyland, I did really good the first few nights, but then by the fourth night, I think that we were there, and I went to lay down in bed, and I was just tired, and I was like, oh, I can just write about it tomorrow. We'll be home tomorrow, and I'll be in a little bit better place. And then the next day, we were driving all day and got home, and we were exhausted, and so it's just, you know. And so I think it's tough. But for me, so you like to focus on one positive thing, at least in your journal. I actually have gone back, and I like to keep them separate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have one personal journal that's just about my experiences and kind of what I'm going through and what I'm feeling. And there's a lot of positivity in that as well. But that's where I kind of just unload my feelings.
Sure.
And then I actually found from a couple of years ago when I was keeping just strictly a gratitude journal.
Mm-hmm.
And every single day I would wake up and I would just list out, today I'm grateful for, and then I would list it. And so because we've been moving and unpacking, I actually found my gratitude journal the other day, or I think it was last night actually. But I found my gratitude journal, and it was kind of like, it's interesting to see when you start the things that you're grateful for, and as it progresses, it gets deeper and deeper because you start to recognize more of that good in your life.
Well, and you don't want to repeat some of the more noticeable things, and so you get
So the first few, it's like the obvious. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for food. Whatever it is. And so as you get along a little bit farther and a little bit farther, you don't want to repeat, and so you think a little bit harder, and you feel a little bit deeper about the things that are great that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a cool experience just to go through that and kind of think, okay, things aren't all bad.
Yeah.
Things are okay. And so I try and keep them kind of separate. And so I do talk about gratitude in my personal journal when I'm keeping it, but I
that
try
one's
and
dedicated to the
dedicate
positive.
one to just a gratitude journal, and this is what I'm grateful for. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then an interesting anecdote about the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I totally agree. Music has a tendency to bring out emotions. And when I was in high school, kind of like you, my journal was very negative, and it was all about the angsty, like, why isn't she answering me? Why is this happening in my life? But I created. Okay, back then we had mixtapes, mixed CDs, right?
For those of you that were
weren't around in the 90s. And so I actually, I went through a point where I was fed up with people. I didn't want to be around people a lot, and like I tried to be as happy and outgoing as I could, but it wasn't me. It wasn't who I was. But I created some mixed CDs, and it was my People Suck series. And so I had number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, and one of them was all about like how life sucks and this is horrible and I can't believe this is going on, and one was just all like angry,
and just a kid and life is a nightmare.
Yes, a lot of that. Well, that song wasn't out yet.
Oh,
when
that's
I
true.
created these CDs, but then another one was like all Hatebreed and Slipknot and Mudvayne and all these like angry, screaming. And the funny thing is, a lot of times they're really not that angry in their music.
Yeah.
It's just the type of music is very loud and very aggressive.
Aggressive, yeah.
And then I had others that were like, just get over it. Just deal with what you got to deal with and move on. Right? Yeah. So I had all these different things. But I remember when I was in probably 9th or 10th grade, so it's been a while. But I remember somebody telling me, and I can't remember who it was that said it, or if it even actually happened, honestly. But I remember somebody telling me about a seminary teacher. So those of you that go to seminary, seminary in Utah was actually part of school.
Right.
So we had release time, and
whereas I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
to do seminary before school.
So they would actually,
In California.
if you registered, it was still a choice. It was an option, and it took the place of one of your electives. But it was listed on your transcript as release time. So it was basically just one period during the day where you could leave school and go to seminary. And they were talking about music in their seminary class, and somebody mentioned how they like to listen to the heavier, angrier, aggressive music when they're lifting weights because they feel like they are more
Gives them
powerful and it
energy,
gives them
yeah.
energy and it makes them do more stuff. And so they did this experiment, and the seminary teacher asked for one of their CDs, and obviously they picked one that was appropriate for seminary. And they put it in the music player, and they said, the teacher said, hold your arms out. So those of you that can see on the videos, I've got my arms out. But he said, hold your arms out and push back. Like, don't necessarily push back, but don't let me push your arms down.
Mhm.
And so he would push on their fists and try and push them down. And they did that with the loud, aggressive metal type music.
Mhm.
And then they turned on church hymns or like Motab or something like that, and did the same thing. And they said it was really interesting because the softer, more uplifting church type music, and they could actually hold they could bear the tension
Mhm.
a lot easier.
Yeah,
And so it wasn't as easy for the teacher to push their arms down
right.
listening to the more uplifting music. So I thought that was really interesting.
Or the teacher was weaker because they were listening to softer music.
It could be. It could have been that. But I always thought that was interesting, and that's something that stuck with me for, 25, 30 years now.
Yeah,
That it really does have an effect on your emotions. The way that music can pull those emotions out
Yeah.
of you and make you, or not necessarily make you, but
they just
get you into a different mindset.
increase the feelings that you're feeling, or
Yeah.
it can help you shift your feelings as well. And sometimes I think that's what you need. That's why I like to listen to sad music sometimes, because I want to validate how I'm feeling. I want to feel like somebody else has felt the way I'm feeling, and it's, it kind of helps me process my emotions. And I think
Mhm.
it's the same thing with journaling about negative things. It's a way to help you process your emotions, right? So it's definitely a good thing to just write about what you're feeling when you're not feeling positive things.
Mhm.
That's why I like the idea of having a separate journal for gratitude, because it's good to process those negative emotions. It's also good to intentionally think about the positive things, and I think you can do both.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
which kind of brings us to the next section of this, which we've briefly discussed in a previous episode.
Mhm.
That's what my family does at the dinner table most nights, and we call it the thorn rosebud. And I learned it as the rosebud thorn, but I liked ending on a positive note.
Mhm.
So we changed it to thorn rosebud. And what we do is we go around the dinner table and we each share our thorn, rose, and bud. And our thorn is something that's bothering us right now, something we don't like, makes us sad, whatever, any
Mhm.
negative emotion. The rose is the opposite, something that's good right now, something that we're thankful for, something that we're glad is happening right now or is about to happen maybe. And then the bud is something we're looking forward to. So one of the things I like about it is it puts more of an emphasis on the positive, right? So one negative thing, two positive things.
Yeah.
It gets us talking with each other. It generates conversation at the dinner table, which I think is one of the most important things you can do with your family, is
Absolutely.
have dinner together as often as you can and have dinner conversations, right? That
Mhm.
time together, I think it's really important. And but yeah, it just helps you focus on the positive as you're spending time together. And you get to share what you're feeling. You get to hear other people share what they're feeling. So we do that almost every night. And, our oldest, we've been doing it since I think before Grant was born. And he's going to turn 13 here in like 3 months. And so we've been doing it for a long time. And for our kids, it's just what we do at the dinner table. It's just a habit that we do.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I recommend trying. I think we all, or a lot of people at least that I've noticed at Thanksgiving time, go around the dinner table and share something they're thankful for, right?
Yeah.
So instead of doing that once a year, how about you do it every dinner,
I love
right?
it.
Every dinner, do a thorn rosebud, or at least just share something you're thankful for.
Yeah. Well, and I like too the idea of, and this is another thing that you and I were talking about in preparation for this, is that thorn aspect, and I feel like that's something that we can really kind of dive into a little bit. Not necessarily because we want to focus on the negative, but because we want to share that it's okay to feel down sometimes. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to feel sad. And I think a lot of times as parents, we want to present this perfect world to our kids where everything's awesome. I think as parents, we want to present this perfect world to our kids, and we want to shelter them from any kind of negative emotions. And I think that's a good thing in theory. But I think there's another aspect to that where if we try and present this always positive, always happy, always grateful, never stressed, never down, never sad attitude to our kids, then as they grow up and they inevitably start to feel some of those negative emotions, they feel like they're not normal.
Like they're broken. They
feel like they're broken. Yeah, they feel like this isn't supposed to be happening. My mom and dad never felt this way. I never saw my mom and dad sad. I never saw my mom and dad down.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good for our kids to see that, to see some of those negative emotions, because we are going to feel it.
Yeah.
And we're going to experience it. And so I like the way that you've presented that, where you talk about something that's bothering you, which...
We give them a space to do that.
You give them a space to do that, and you share with them, and you show them that it's okay to feel those feelings. But it also gives you a support group. And it gives all of you, however many people are in your family, an opportunity to share what's bothering you and possibly get help. If there's something that you as a parent can help with, or that as a sibling or whatever, we can get help from the people who care about us the most.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I like that aspect of it. And then I definitely like the aspect of teaching them gratitude. And I like the two different aspects, something that's going good right now and something that I'm looking forward to. And so it teaches them to look for the good, but also to keep a goal in mind.
Yeah.
And to keep something in the future. So
you kind of have a heavier load on the positive things.
Yeah.
Because it is good to be able to speak about the negative things that are going on and to be able to process that and have a place to talk about it. But I also think it's good to have a heavier emphasis on the positive, right?
Yeah. So I love that. I love that approach. I think one of the last things that we kind of wanted to talk about is how do we find that gratitude, especially when we are feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling down, when we're grieving, when we have those more negative type emotions. How do we bring that good aspect of our life back into focus? And how do we get ourselves out of that hole and realize that there's more, right? Because I think, unfortunately, there's enough times where people can't find that. And it's never a good outcome.
Right.
And so how do we get out of that? How do we find that positivity? How do we find that gratitude? And so I think the journaling, the talking about it with family or friends, sharing those things, I think is a really good thing. But I think sometimes one of the things that we have to do is just force ourselves. Because when it's difficult, that's when it's the most critical. And so sometimes we just have to force ourselves. And so I wanted to bring it back to kind of a physical way that we can do that. And so one of the things that I learned, I read it in a book years ago, is smiling is muscles, right? You're using muscles. And so if you force yourself to smile for 20 seconds, and I challenge you right now to try that, force yourself, stop, take a breath, force yourself to smile for 20 seconds. And as I was reading the book, I did this. And after that 20 seconds was up, I literally could not stop smiling. Physically, something happens in your muscle structure where you just keep smiling. And then
To this day, Adam still smiles
right,
all the time.
all the time. I never stop smiling. Smiling is my favorite. I just it creates something in your brain, and it just changes the responses. It changes the neurons. It changes the way things are firing, and it makes it easier for your body to smile.
Mhm.
And when you're smiling, you can't help but feel good.
Yeah.
And that's where I don't know how the science works out. That's way beyond my scope. But when you're smiling, you can't help but feel good.
Yeah.
There's still going to be possibly some stress, and there's going to be some feelings of overwhelm. But overall, smiling makes you feel good.
Mhm.
And the better you feel, the more good is going to come to you.
Right. And I think, I've heard a phrase, when you don't feel like praying, that's when you need to the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can apply that to smiling, right? When you don't feel like smiling, maybe that's when you need to the most, when
Yep.
you need to just make yourself do it. And
Yeah.
and sometimes you just kind of need to let yourself feel the negative emotions and sit in them for a while before you get to that point where you make yourself smile. So sometimes I feel like I have to get to the point where I'm ready to make myself be happy now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, right? It's okay
Yeah.
to sit in those emotions for a bit and just process them and everything, but you can't stay stuck there,
Absolutely.
right? So you have to let yourself get to a point where, like, okay, I'm done feeling negative. I'm going to let myself feel positive now. I'm going to make myself smile.
Mm-hmm.
And so that actually works. Right?
Absolutely. And I think that's an important thing too. In the world that we live in today of good vibes and positivity, and you have to be positive all the time. I think it's important to emphasize with all of this that we're talking about. We're not saying that it's not okay to have
Right.
those bad feelings, that it's not okay to feel what you feel. Your feelings are an expression of who you are.
Yeah.
And what's going on in your life, and it's kind of that response to what's happening to you. And it's okay to feel those things.
Mhm.
It's not okay to stay in that
Exactly.
and to keep yourself down in that place. And so I think that's a really important point to talk about, is it's okay to feel what you feel.
Mhm.
And allow it, sit in it, stew on it,
Mhm.
express it, right? Share it with somebody. And like you talked about, when you don't feel like praying, that's when it's the most important. Go to somebody.
Mhm.
If you believe in a God, take it up with him or her or it, whatever you call it.
Mhm.
If you have a therapist, talk to them about it. That's what they're there for.
If you don't have a therapist, consider getting one.
Consider getting one, right? And so I think that's a really important aspect to bring up too, is there's always somebody there willing to help and able to help. Whether that's a close friend, a family member, if you don't feel comfortable sharing with somebody that close to you, find a therapist.
Mhm.
You know, find it in meditation, in prayer, whatever it is you need.
Journaling. Yeah.
Journaling, yeah.
Right.
Feel those feelings, express them, and then move on.
Mhm.
Yep, I love it.
So, it's almost Thanksgiving time,
Mhm.
right? We want to be thankful. We want to think of things that we're thankful for, express that gratitude. But I think our weekly challenge, I think we talked about the smiling, right?
Yeah.
So our weekly challenge is to try the 20 seconds of smiling. Make yourself smile for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Do it when, maybe you're not the happiest, and see what changing it creates in you.
Mhm.
And so try that this week, and that is our challenge for you.
Yeah. So thank you again for listening. We really do appreciate all of you that are listening. We have seen those numbers rising. We've seen, a few people that are catching on, and that's very exciting for us, and we do appreciate that. So thank you for listening. Don't forget, leave us a review, leave us some comments,
Mhm.
all the things that are going to help us grow.
And check us out. We're sometimes weekly on Mondays. So
Yeah.
we're we go in phases, but now that Adam's moved, we're going to try to get back to a once a week type thing. Yeah, you can check us out on Mondays at
on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google, YouTube. One of these days we'll get back on the social media horse, and you can check us out there. We'll put some promos out and some highlights from the weekly episodes. So,
and then what's our next week topic about? Well, I guess we're going to be releasing one that we've already recorded.
Yeah, so we'll be releasing one that we've already recorded, and it's been a couple of weeks. But I think after that, we've talked about a couple of different topics, and so I think we might be talking about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Getting vulnerable.
Yep. So that'll be fun in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So tune in to that.
It's going to be a deep one. So be prepared. Be prepared to have some emotions.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
See ya.